Am I the jerk for uninviting my step-sibling from my wedding? My fiancé, who is 22 years old, and I, who am 24 years old, have our wedding coming up this winter. It is a small venue with limited space. Luckily, we were still able to invite everyone who is important to us. We decided on a no small children wedding due to the venue size and photographer equipment safety. We have a huge security deposit on it. Do not get us wrong, we absolutely love children. If we were not paying for it all ourselves, and if we had a bigger venue, we would have been more than happy to accommodate the children as well. We have been trying to conceive ourselves, sadly once ending in a miscarriage. Fast forward to the day everyone starts receiving their invitations. My fiancé's stepsister received her invite and, instead of coming to us about her concerns, she called 5 family members, telling them, how dare we request for no children under the age of 10 to attend. She has a 9-year-old and an 11-month-old. By the time she called us, we had already heard from 3 of his family members about how upset she was about it. She belittled us, saying things like, if I can't bring them, I'm not coming. And it's not my fault you all have failed to become parents, until my fiancé was on the verge of tears. He is not a crier. He really wanted her to be there. So after over 10 minutes of the nonsense, I told her she can bring them, but that she is to sit in the back. She has always been the drama starter, including asking my fiancé if she could wear a white dress to my wedding, since my dress is technically ivory. He told her no and gave her the list of colors she can wear. Her words were, oh gosh, your wedding colors are gross. It is our 2 favorite colors and used in weddings a lot. Then she proceeded to tell my fiancé he needed to postpone the wedding so she can have one last Christmas with her family. Now here's where I may be the asshole. She tried to tell, not ask, but told me her kids were my ring bearer and flower girl. When I asked her when did we ever agree to that, she said, well, I assumed. I snapped and said, well, you know what assuming does? It makes an ass out of you and me. She looked at me crazy. I said, you better be glad we are even allowing them at the wedding. Do not push our courtesy invite, or I will be more than happy to revoke it. My fiancé walked in right after that, and the comment about the white dress came to mind. I switched back to her and stated loud and clear, and if you show up in that white dress you were asking about, be prepared to go home in a red one. My fiancé laughed, and his stepsister stormed out. Now we are getting calls from his step-family saying we bullied her into not wearing a dress she liked. When we questioned them, it seems she never clarified that it was white to any of them. I guess that slipped her mind. Some still think we need to apologize to her because she seems really upset about it. At this point, we are thinking about not inviting them. So Reddit, am I the asshole for wanting to uninvite my stepsister-in-law to avoid drama on my big day? At this point, anyone who thinks that the stepsister isn't going to cause issues at OP's wedding hasn't been paying attention. Uninvite her and her kids, and you'll have a more peaceful wedding. Every family member that disagrees can go and comfort her on your big day. Make sure he has your back and isn't going to capitulate to this kind of thing in the future. Only good behavior gets rewarded, so make your expectations clear and set boundaries now. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my sibling with their kids after they said I was wasting money by putting my foster child in private school? I have been fostering Maya, who is 8 years old, for about 7 months now. I work at a children's hospital, and Maya came in around 10 months ago with some pretty horrific injuries. She was in the hospital for 2.5 months and had 3 surgeries, as well as a lot of physical therapy and occupational therapy. She did not have any family, so I took care of her while she was there. I got her some clothes and toys. I learned how to do her hair and watched Frozen 50 times. I stayed the night before and after surgeries, or when she had a rough day. I cooked for her and introduced her to fruits and vegetables. I ended up falling in love with this little girl and had to keep her. I was able to get licensed pretty quickly because of my job, so when she came home from the hospital, she went straight to me. The public school sent a teacher to the hospital and then to the house for a while. When she was able to go to school, she was put in the special education class in a public school with a plan to eventually get her into mainstream classes. There were not exactly any problems with the public school or her class, it just was not a good fit. She was not making friends, was not making any improvements with their speech therapist, and was not learning much, even though her teachers tried. Her school got her 5 hours per week of tutoring, and she would hold my hand and take a nap the second we got home. She is not much of a napper. I decided to look at private schools and found a Montessori-inspired school around 45 minutes from my house. We took a tour, she did the assessment, and she got in. She started in March, and she is doing great. She is speaking more and more clearly. She is learning so much. She even has 2 friends. The school is expensive though. After my financial aid, I am paying $1,200 per month for her tuition, and when she starts going to aftercare, it will be another $450 per month. I was talking to my sister about Maya and this school and how she and her husband might want to consider it for their older daughter, who is 2 years old, as the preschool starts at 3 years old. She asked why I'm sending a child I might not get to keep to private school, and said that it would be a waste of money if she goes to a family member. I told her not to worry about me wasting my money on Maya and that I am happy to pay if it is helping her. She kept pushing, and I told her that if this is how she feels about my child, I will have to distance myself from her and will not be helping with her children anymore. Now she is calling me sensitive and claims that I am abandoning my family. Am I the asshole? You are not in the wrong here at all. Your sister's mentality about relationships in foster situations is highly problematic, and she really should take a closer look at why she feels that way. Your impact on Maya is irreplaceable and will be something she can look back on and feel well loved by her foster parent. The idea that fostering isn't a real commitment is so flawed. Maya deserves the standard of care and love you provide. Am I the jerk for telling my sibling they were wrong to think they could pressure our parent into anything? My sister, a 26-year-old female, became obsessed with our dad meeting his birth family when she was 14. Our dad was adopted as an infant, and we always knew about this. Dad always knew too. Even though he was raised when it wasn't as common to know from day one, he always knew, and he always saw his parents who brought him up as his real parents. He said he never had an interest in knowing his birth family. My dad is in his 60s now and never had an interest in finding out more about birth relatives. My sister brought it up many times over the years, and our parents spoke to her about it being Dad's decision whether he meets them or not. She was told it would be her choice to do so once she was of legal age. For a few years after turning 18, she wanted it to be done by Dad. However, during COVID, she decided she was too desperate to know and went searching for relatives. She found out Dad's birth mother as well as 5 birth half-siblings from his birth mother existed and were alive. Dad was still not interested. My sister went to meet with them. Then she wanted to include them in the family. Dad said no. He stated that if she wanted to spend time with them as a family, it was her right, but he would not be involved and would not let her bully or pressure him into that. She was very upset. She continued having a relationship with Dad's birth relatives and tried working on Dad, but he has not given in. My sister really wanted to invite them to Dad's 65th birthday party. Dad told her she could, but it would be a party minus him. My sister was so frustrated and said Dad was too stubborn. I told her she was wrong to think she could pressure him into doing anything, but especially something so big and personal. I told her it was his decision ultimately, and she needs to accept that she can't force his hand on this. I also warned her if she did try, she could lose Dad. She told me I should be on her side. She said I can't tell her what she can and can't do, and I shouldn't speak to her like I'm her parent when I'm not, as she is a grown woman. Am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here. If she's a grown-ass woman, she should respect the fact that her father is a grown-ass man and stop nagging. He's made his decision clear, and he's not obligated to meet them if he doesn't want to. Not every child who is adopted wants to meet their biological family, and that's okay. It's weird and extremely inappropriate for her to try to force him to. Am I the jerk for wanting my partner to check in with me before inviting house guests? My husband, Jack, invited our niece, Holly, to stay with us for a month. She was laid off, and her mother was pressuring her to find work. Jack wanted to give her space to decompress and think about her next steps. I love Holly and I'm happy to host her, but I took issue with Jack extending the invitation without consulting me first. He informed me after the fact. I am the primary caregiver for my parents and grandmother since October 2021. They are disabled and do not drive or cook. My mother has had numerous medical issues with approximately 15 hospitalizations in the past 3 years, plus emergency room visits I have lost count of. 2 of her admissions were in the ICU on a ventilator, and she almost died. It has been stressful. I am at the hospital daily when she is there and am her advocate. I am her only child, so all the responsibility is on me. I have been severely burnt out for the past year, juggling their needs and working a full-time job. Jack is aware of my burnout. We started in vitro fertilization in January, which adds another layer of stress. Jack works from home and is required in the office 3 weeks a year for scheduled events. One of those weeks was Holly's first week here, which meant I had to do the majority of the work as hostess, cooking, and taking on additional caregiving tasks and IVF appointments. Holly is worth it, but given the stress in our lives right now, I wanted to opt in by my own choice versus being voluntold by Jack. When he told me she was coming, I expressed only excitement. After her being here for 2 weeks, I spoke with him because he was checked out about her visit and not communicating. For example, during her first week here, he had to work late 3 nights due to events he knew about in advance. I found out he would not be home until 10 p.m. when I texted him at 4 p.m. asking what time I should have dinner ready. During the second week, he was supposed to work from home. I found out at dinner Sunday night because I asked a question about planning and not because he told me that his schedule had changed and he would be driving into the office the entire week. That night, I expressed my frustration at his lack of involvement in her stay. In the middle of the argument, I said something like, "You invited her without giving me any say. The least you could do is communicate proactively or book some tickets for the things she wants to do. I have made all the plans, purchased all the tickets, and made all her meals." He responded, "You want me to ask permission for someone to come to my house?" I explained it was not about asking permission, but about communicating with his wife. He retorted, "We have a real problem if I have to ask you for permission for someone to visit me in my house." I repeated that it was not about permission, but about treating his spouse as an equal and a partner. We have not yet resolved the conversation because we will not argue in front of Holly. None of this is her fault, and I do not want her to think we are arguing because of her. It's basic respect to check with a partner about having someone over for a night, let alone an entire month. It's not just his house, it belongs to both of them, so both individuals should be aware if someone is coming over. Even if he's trying to help family, decisions like these need both partners on the same page. Given how busy and stressful their lives are, it's reasonable to ask to be involved in these decisions. Am I the jerk for not interacting with someone in distress knocking at my door at 1 a.m.? So, I am a 22-year-old female living at my parents' house this summer, while I pursue an internship in my hometown. In return, I often am in charge of my little siblings while my parents are out of town. I live in a fairly safe suburb, and nothing bad has ever happened in the 18 years we have lived here. Last night at around 1 a.m., I was woken up by someone ringing the doorbell. This was already odd to me because we have a 5-foot gate in order to enter the courtyard, which was locked, so someone would have to hop the gate to get to the door. Then, I started hearing pounding on the door and a young female voice screaming and crying, "Let me in and please help me." I immediately went into fight-or-flight mode, huddled my siblings in a room with the lights off and called 911. While I did so, she continued pounding on the door with full force. Later, I saw from the camera that she took the wooden sign off the door and started banging it on the door as hard as possible. She also continued to scream and cry the entire time. I truly thought she was trying to break in, and I was certain that if she pounded with the force she did on the window, she would get in. My main goal was making sure my siblings were safe, and that we could hide if we needed to. It took about 5 minutes to get through to a 911 dispatcher, and about 30 minutes after that for the police to arrive. By that time, the girl was long gone. Now, the next day with hindsight, I feel so guilty. While I thought the house was being broken into, I now think it was a young girl who seemed to be in serious trouble. And I did not even try to speak to her to ask if she was all right or that I had called the police and that they were on their way. I keep thinking that if I was in trouble and needed help, I would want a good Samaritan to answer their door and help me out. But I was so petrified that I did not do anything but sit and call the police. I really hope she found help at some other house in the neighborhood, and I feel awful I could not give her the help she needed or even tell her I was calling the police. Does this make me a bad person? Nothing you have done here makes me think you are the jerk here. You made the right call by prioritizing the safety of your siblings and yourself. It would have been extremely dangerous to gamble your safety for an erratic stranger. In these situations, contacting the authorities is the best choice. Would I be the asshole if I refused to go to family counseling? I am a 15-year-old male and have an elder sister named Layla. Layla has made it her mission to make my life miserable for as long as I can remember, and my parents just let it happen. Layla can do whatever she wants. She can stay out until midnight. She can get CS and DS and never do her homework. She can get suspended, drink underage, and go to parties. Meanwhile, I am expected to get straight as. Layla gets to call me lazy, a rat, useless, and worthless, and whatever else she pleases. However, heaven help us if I tell her to shut up. That gets me a 3-hour lecture on how disrespectful I am. Dad says it is because he expects better from me and that Layla just cannot do the same stuff I can. He does his best to pay attention to me most of the time, admittedly, but my mother does not. I was recently diagnosed with cluster headaches, and she never took me to the doctor until Dad came home one day when I was in the middle of an attack and called an ambulance. Last week, when I was having one of my attacks, Layla went behind my back to tell my parents I was faking it. She was upset by how I got time off for headaches, so they should make me get up and do work. Dad told her no, but she started talking about favoritism, and of course, that meant we had to do something. When Layla feels like it's favoritism against her, as though she doesn't get away with everything, that's a cause for the house to blow down. The second I could see, hear, and think again, they told me we were going to family counseling. They obviously did no such thing when I talked about Layla bullying me, or how they let her say whatever she wanted when I cannot say anything back. Favoritism only matters when Layla feels it. I have gone to several sessions, hopeful because maybe I can get to talk about myself as well. However, it was all about Layla. Layla feels I get too few chores, so I am doing more now. Layla feels Dad does not spend enough time with her, so he does not come to any of my competitions anymore because she needs him. He missed a major hockey competition last week. I need to make 100 compromises, but Layla, of course, will never have to do a single thing. Dad used to be the only one on my side, but now he is too concerned about Layla's allegation of favoritism to even ask how school went. I hate family counseling and I do not want to go. Would I be the asshole if I refused? It sounds like individual therapy might be more beneficial for both you and Layla, rather than these family sessions that seem to be causing more harm than good. The favoritism towards Layla is so extreme that it's understandable why you feel distant and ignored. If your dad and mom keep dismissing your needs, focus on keeping your grades up and planning your future. Remember, earning ability is power, and you'll have far more choices than Layla in a few years. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.